Welcome to my Quality Science Megabase tour. As you can see, all the signs here are quality signs except Promethium, and I'll explain that at the very end of the video. But we're doing research productivity at 1.3 million effective SPM. As for our actual production rate is at 60,000 per minute. For a very long time. This is a very stable base. Actually, about forever. Ever I started it, it is like at least 700 hours stable. But yeah, all the quality signs, a little bit lower production rate based on their value per pack, and more uncommon Gleba signs per minute because they're stinky and spoil. But yeah, this save has been going on for a very long time, 3,400 hours, like 60% uptime ever since the Space Age release. And let's take a look at our research. We pretty much maxed out everything, but also have a very high mining productivity because quality mining do need this level. I regret not leveling this to 10,000, but yeah, military ones are just needed for asteroids, and that's pretty much it. And for robot speed, I didn't bother leveling up too much because we don't have a heavy bot usage anywhere, even on Nauvis. And I can show you my Nauvis hub where all the signs are transported with inserters and this cursed wagon setup where each slot can transfer 8,000 per minute, so that we don't need any bots to transfer anything but calcite and bioflux. Yeah, and here's also a silo setup to split between a few of the legendary sizes, since we're consuming at 10,000 per minute, but one slot can only take out 8,000. So yeah, you might be thinking, why am I making quality signs? This is one of the big reasons we're cutting down throughput and need to even bot any signs out, and even the belts and all the transport ships are very light on item throughput. But another big reason is that all the quality signs have kind of different flavors to them. They have many different paths or crafting trees. If we start thinking about quality, instead of just mass producing basic materials and horizontal scaling from there, I definitely enjoy making more complicated factories more than copy pasting a lot, you know. Yeah, we can also take a look at our Nauvis pollution. It's not that I have it off, it's just that we're using efficiency modules on almost everything, so we have a very minimum pollution cloud held back by the trees I planted by hand. These are enough to hold it back because less than 60 pollution per chunk. But yeah, if we're using speed beacons for all these labs, it would be the pollution probably is enough to cover this entire circle, and I don't really want to build a artillery wall or whatsoever. Too much effort and tedious to do, and already done it in 1.1. But yeah, we do have a few mods in this save, but nothing major. They're all optional. You can load the save without them, like research control that change research based on a signal. It was particularly useful when I was using it to auto queue mining prod. Otherwise, we have to set up some kind of auto clicker to do it. It's kind of annoying. There's some other ones to remove asteroid particles. They're just for UPS reasons, but you can load it without them, so it's like whatsoever. And milestone, it's kind of just here to well, I don't know why it's not working. Oh wait, I need to enable my GUI. And yeah, we also have speed control, so we can run the game at faster than 60. And we also have speed control mod, so we can run the game at more than 60 UPS to compensate sometimes when it dip below due to Promethium ships. But again, we also have milestone or just a big list of timestamps. Honestly, doesn't really matter. None of these mods have any game changing behaviors, so you can load them or without them. But I will be uploading this to my drive and make it public once this video is out. Speaking of UPS, this base is definitely not the most optimized base out there because I just wanted to do quality science, and UPS is just like a second thought. And even though I do try to optimize for it, but this is definitely not the way to have a most optimized bases. We'll see a lot of signs are not really worth to make legendary on. They take way too much resources, and it's definitely not good for UPS. But again, I won't be discussing the details on what is the best practice for UPS, otherwise it's gonna get too long and too dry. Before we get into the actual production of the sciences, there's some terms I hope you already know what it means. So like LDS shuffling or space casino or upcycling. These are very important concepts that I won't be explaining in the later parts, so make sure you already know what they mean. Now let's take a look at our 43,000 ton casino ship. I don't know what to name it, but just a legendary icon because that's what it's producing. Legendary signs. You can see we're producing, all these are legendary, 10,000 per minute, red, green, and blue in space signs. Besides that, we're also making 1,200 per minute calcite for the stone needed on Vulcanus for purple signs. And also a lot of ice, 12,000 per minute, out of which 1,000 per minute is used locally by space signs, while we just store the other 10,000 per minute extras to your hub and drop off at Aquilo for legendary Aquilo signs. Now let's take a look at the ship's layout. As you can see, there are a lot of crushers. They're needed for upcycling the asteroids. And the thrusters, many stacks to reach the speed desired to have fully stacked, well, not fully stacked, but fully saturated belt of asteroid input for the crushers. And those thrusters only turn on when the ship is returning to Nauvis, because how long the trip is, and we want to minimize the downtime so that we come back to solar system edge as fast as possible. Otherwise we won't have enough asteroids input. And all these blue sections you see here are cargo bays, and if we zoom in we can see there's total more than 1,300 cargo bays to reach the maximum number of storage from this ship, so that we can buffer this amount of material over 2 hours, so that we can only need to drop off when we're full of science and materials. Let's take a look at the schedule. The normal schedule just loop between solar system edge and shattered planet and return after 45 seconds. And we have an interrupt that runs on a timer that after this amount of ticks, but it's equivalent to 2 hours. Then we go to Aquilo to grab some fusion cells and drop off the ice in the meantime, and goes back to Nauvis to drop off the other sciences, and we head to Vulcanus to drop off the calcite, and then the interrupt is cleared, and then we come back to solar system edge for another round. Now let's take a look at our crusher setup. As you can see, it's kind of different from other base casino designs. We have this full belt of normal asteroid input, that when they're inserted in the crushers, they don't output the reroll onto the belt unless they're higher quality. Instead, they just go into a nearby crusher that also reroll all the possible outcomes from one crusher until they're at a higher quality again and belted to the next section. And it still would clog up if not for this circuit control that periodically pulls out the normal asteroids from some of the crushers to clear up the inventory and put it back onto these belts, and goes back to the input and being prioritized. But yeah, it's still a much more belt and inserter efficient way to crush asteroids and upcycling them. And we can go to the next section where here we split these according to their quality, and if it's still normal, let's put it back, loop it back to the start. If it's higher quality, we put them into the next section of uncommon asteroid with the same layout and circuit, and down to the rare ones, which is a lot less crushers. And at last we go to the epic tier crushing, which is very different because we're using the basic crushing recipe to upcycle instead of re-rolling, because this way we can get a little bit more legendary material out of a roll when they have the same refound rate of 80% and maximum productivity. So we still need to toss away a lot of useless quality material so that we're not doing this step earlier, otherwise it would be way too much waste for very little return, since most of the legendary asteroids come from this step. And yeah, all the legendary asteroids and extra materials we get here are belted back all the way to the top of the ship again. And we have 10 columns here in total to crush 10 full belts of normal asteroids, and a little bit extras on the side to make up the extra cost or buffering need when the ship is returning to Nauvis. Now let's take a look at the factory section of this ship, where all the legendary asteroids are converted here in a smelting column to materials needed for the science, and a little bit oil processing was the basic recipe with calcite and coal, or the petroleum needed later down for plastic. And here we have a lot of carbonic asteroid buffering. Again, here metallic buffering, or the downtime when the ship is dropping off stuff, so that it can keep a constant production during that drop-off trip. And here you can see the sulfur production. Well, we're tossing away most of the carbon because we don't need that much, and this is already enough for space science. And we're also taking a lot of epic carbon asteroids here for epic coal. Well, we do make a little bit legendary coal, but it's not really needed since we go down a little bit. Here is how we're making plastic for the red circuits with epic coal, because we can put all the mods in cryo plant at 200 productivity. They are the same, so this can make half of the epic plastic and other half will be legendary, so we can use them. And all the epic plastic goes back into this loop, LDS shuffling with some quality mods in them, and this way we can make legendary LDS, and then we recycle them for the rest of the legendary plastic needed, and also produce a lot of legendary copper. In fact, all the legendary copper come from this step, and a little bit extra steel as well. But all the epic LDS come down to this portion to get recycled and upcycled. Well, we kind of toss away all the unneeded waste like epic steel or epic copper in this huge column here, and only give back the plastic into the loop for upcycling. And we also have a little bit fluid voiding here to deal with all the extra molten iron produced. But yeah, this ship almost does not use legendary coal directly, but we use epic coal instead for all the legendary plastic, so that we don't need as much carbon, since carbon is actually a lot. Like almost half of the legendary asteroids needed on this ship is for this single crusher into sulfur, because of how bad this recipe is. It only gives 10 sulfur at max prod, and we need a lot of it for blue signs, like 2.5 thousand per minute sulfur, so 250 legendary carbon asteroids just for blue signs. Well, the red and green signs basically don't need anything, since one metallic crush into 400 ores and smelt into 600 plates. So red and green signs very cheap, but blue signs very expensive. And here's also the space signs, which is definitely the easiest legendary signs of all. Only 4 assemblers, making enough of 10,000 per minute that feed into 1,000 labs just from 4 assemblers. And yeah, this is all the legendary production of the ship. A pretty long river of signs back in the hub. There's also some spaghetti buffering of oxide asteroids for to compensate the downtime. And there are also a little bit circuits here to control how much ice is produced from basic crushing, so that it match exactly about 10,000 per minute extra into the hub for Aquilo signs. Now let's take a look at the rest of the ship. It's pretty standard stuff, like this fusion reactor making 3 gigawatt of power while we're only drawing 2.2, and a lot more belt buffering from the metallic asteroids. It says we need a ton of molten copper for LDS shuffling. Well, the advanced recipe is kind of bad compared to basic one because it makes so much less ores. And here we have some carbon production for fuel. And this is the molten block, coal block, explosive block. All these are made very modular so that I can kind of paste them to other ships. Especially you'll see later on my Promethium ship, it's pretty much the same setups. Makes me feel like I'm playing Lego with these designs. And here's the water and calcite block. And the explosive rockets. And here's our railgun ammo production, very cursed flower design, as I call it. Since we're flying in the shattered place, we need a lot of railgun ammo and explosive rockets. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But there's also some fuel production where I'm belting all the fuel ingredients with water pipe into this kind of, again, tileable bins. Here you see many of these and round into the center. Again, these are turned off and only turn on when given this radar signal for the drop-off trip, which need a little bit more speed. And yeah, that's pretty much it about this entire ship. Now let's take a look at our purple sign setup with mostly belted in materials and imported legendary calcite from Space Casino earlier. And we are converting the calcite in these foundries to stone for the rails. And the other calcite goes in here to be smelted as bricks. Well, the molten copper are getting deleted in these foundries, and the bricks goes into these furnace assemblers. Well, we use the belted in blue circuits recycling for Productivity 1 modules, while still needing to take more red circuits since blue chip recycling gives more greens. And yeah, this is all it takes for 10,000 per minute. Also a little bit more molten copper waiting from the foundries here. And we're also taking some extra iron outside for the iron sticks for rails, and a lot of steel from sea layer from LDS shoveling for the rails and furnaces. Well, we do import most of the calcite here. It's still a little bit short on calcite. Legendary calcite it is. We're consuming 1.3 thousand per minute, while we're importing only 1.2 thousand per minute, as you saw on the casino. And we are actually producing a little bit on Vulcanus, almost 100 per minute from this very cursed setup our way, where we just kind of self-cycle these calcite in silo chests with quality mining, and this setup is enough to make almost 100 legendary calcite per minute. Now let's take a look at how we're producing almost a fully stacked belt of legendary processing unit from this huge blue chip upcycler that is very optimized for direct insertions. As you can see here, there's no quality greens and reds going onto the belts, and we're only belting a little bit of upcycled blue chip onto the belts until they become legendary. And this single block makes almost 300 legendary blue chip per minute, while almost no items on the belt, because we're at max blue chip productivity. We don't need prop mods in these EMPs, so we can have full quality modules and speed modules in recyclers, since we're not really losing any material at 200% prod. But one thing we do need to take care of is sometimes the recycling have random walk effects on the chips ratio, so we need to take care of that by just these inserters to take out anything that happen to appear in the inventory of the recyclers, which normally does not happen because it's prioritized with this insertion first into these EMPs, so they mostly don't appear unless some kind of unbalance happens between the red and greens, and they will be put on this center lane for disposal actually, because it's not much material to be taken care of, and you know, it will be put on this center belt, the legendary blue chips. And we only need sulfuric acid input and some copper and iron. Unfortunately, I couldn't fit a casting foundry here, so I have to belt the copper and iron as well. Otherwise, it might be a little bit too big to tile this design. Like, in fact, there's 44 blocks in total, and we only need very few plate casting boundaries for this entire build. And now you see these legendary blue chips flowing in, and they're converted into red chips here, a lot of them. And it's an interesting recycler design again, because we're recycling this into green chips to be made into red chips with a little bit extra plastic input, legendary plastic. And we're even recycling the green chips for the copper wires while taking out the extra legendary iron onto belts, which is how we're making the iron stick we saw earlier. But again, this is actually way more than enough legendary blue chips. So another part of the factory is here that we're making legendary yellow signs from the blue chip as well. Well, we also need to recycle some of the legendary blue chips for all the ingredients for robot frames. You see this very cursed spaghetti design here. For batteries, pipe, engines, electric engines, robot frames, and back to yellow signs. Now the only thing that we're gonna miss is legendary LDS here, which are built in from another part of the factory. And there's some story behind this blue chip upcycler. As you can see, there were some old designs left behind where I was trying to build a lot of green and reds here onto different section of the factory, but this turned out to be very bad and inefficient because there's so much building and splitters, and it's just not as good, not nearly as good as the latest design. And there was another one here where I was using silos as chests so that there's less belt, but it was still very inefficient because we're still using quality mods to get quality greens and reds. They're just not as good as this. This is definitely the most efficient way to upcycle blue chip if you have 200% prod, that is, because otherwise you need some prods in the EMPs and you can't really beacon them that much since you get quality penalties. Here we are just optimizing for least amount of inserters and machines for a lot of legendary blue chip production. Now let's take a look at how we're making all the legendary LDS and plastic. So if you can already see, we're doing a lot of LDS shuffling, which start from factory coal here. This kind of cursed coal factory that we're using coal liquefaction to destroy all the normal coal and upcycling all the uncommon coal so that we only built rare, epic, and legendary coal out of the mine, and they become plastic. Well, this mine also makes petroleum from coal liquefaction here to power these cryo plants to make plastic. Also, all the extra fluids are voided again with some totally unrelated recipes. And now we can take a look at where all these plastic are going and how we're actually doing the LDS shuffling here. Well, this is more like LDS upcycling. You can see moltens, only moltens needed, and the plastic go in, and then they get directly inserted to recyclers into these chests here. And there's a circuit clock that will pull out legendary plastic and epic plastic out of these boxes, while all the rest of the content of the chest will be deleted, and along with these rare plastic that we're not even bothered to upcycle because that mine just makes so much quality, higher quality like epic and legendary plastic already that we don't really care about the rare plastic anymore. I think we can probably just direct insert into lava with the new update, but I'm still putting in these boxes to be blown up by the railgun. And yeah, this is the most important design of the entire quality base because of how much item it can void in just one shot. It helps a lot, especially you'll see it later in other designs or you're trying to get rid of unwanted quality or garbage output from scrap recycling. We'll be using this a lot. And the way we're automating the railgun shots are from these biter eggs. And you might be wondering how we're getting biter eggs on Vulcanus. It's from these productivity tree module imports and getting recycled based on requests, like just now. And the egg with the very precise freshness timer will be delivered to a railgun block and only put on belt when it's about to spoil into biter. And then once it spoils, the railgun will just shoot at this position very precisely. And it took me a while to experiment with this design, but I have gotten it to 100% reliable firing, that it's not destroying any other inserters or recyclers on the side, and we can't really afford to automate. But yeah, this is how we are getting not just legendary plastic, but we're also taking out the legendary LDS onto another belt for yellow signs. And there are many blocks to support all the legendary plastic production in LDS. Here, we just saw one happen. And yeah, we also have some yellow belt and wall automation for repair. And the next section is pretty similar, but it's fully like speed beacon, speed moduled, and this one does not really consume legendary plastic, but only convert moltens into legendary steel. This is our steel block. We have a little bit more biter eggs with faster clocks, since these chests get full a lot faster with legendary copper plates. But yeah, this block does not really consume legendary plastic. This is the actual LDS shuffling. And many more blocks here just to produce the steel. We're making a lot of steel from this. Around 47,000 per minute. And interestingly enough, a lot, very little if the steel goes back into the chest, that will be destroyed. Here you see line 1 that's almost full. Yeah, once these are full, based on the timer, the biter will spawn and railgun will delete all these chests. I mean, I could have made lava direct insertions or recyclers to delete all the extra coppers here, but the biggest issue is that inserters are very inefficient at even tossing things into lava, because it only burns one item per tick, thus killing the throughput by a lot, and it's a lot of extra calculations. Those recyclers are actually worse than lava inserters. But yeah, this is definitely the most efficient way I came up with to delete items, since we're making 10 times more copper than the steel needed. 7,000, and we're deleting 400,000 per minute, almost 500,000. And yeah, this is the molten block needed to feed all these LDS. They're very hungry on the moltens, and we're giving a lot of calcite input, and it converts all the stone pipe product into landfill and throw into lava. There's some more flower brick design for the wall automation. Definitely don't need as much, but there's also the belt. And even the railgun ammo is automated here because we have petroleum, so we get sulfur, explosive, and we have metals for the railgun ammo. Now we can take a look at our rest of the Vulcanus factory, where there were some uncommon Vulcanus signs set up here with very long trains for wagon mining. But I deconstructed all of that because it was very inefficient and these mines kind of run out. And way before that, there was also some normal signs set up here that was exporting like 10,000 normal signs per minute back to Nauvis as the starter Megabase to research all the productivity researches. And here's a demolisher museum. And here is the even earlier starter base where I was upcycling a lot of modules, even batteries with imported fighter eggs from Nauvis and superconductor for quality modules. They were pretty slow upcycling, but I was getting some from them. After that, I was just making everything starting from quality. I mean, legendary is much easier instead of these upcycling malls. And all these steam turbines are enough to power the entire factory, like about 3-point-something gigawatts. So that I never really bothered to import fusion for Vulcanus. How free power is here. And there's also some robot network here to export the LDS in this separate network, and some calcite for Nauvis as well. And here's the blue chip export network as well. And I'm not gonna spoil what this part is for and why I need so many underground export, but here's also the tungsten carbide export for Aquilo. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire Vulcanus factory besides the uncommon sign setup. It doesn't require any imports from other part of the factory. It's a complete standalone factory here from sulfuric acid pipes and this calcite mine and a single tungsten mine and a little bit coal as well for the signs. And we can see here we're doing quality mining into silos and straight up destroying normal tungsten ores. Because how efficient it is to just mine more for the miners instead of trying to upcycle these ores, because you get so much more uncommon ores per common destroyed instead of upcycled. And yeah, this is why we need a lot of mining productivity levels, because how slow it is to mine tungsten. When we have 7,000 levels, we still need these slightly speed beaconed miners to keep up with the throughput needed. And there's a quick look at the molten block, pretty much the same as other places, besides we're direct pumping lava and throwing away the landfill thanks to the nukes draining these lava here. There's a recent update. And yeah, for the science block, it is a very compact build with just two solid input. One is the uncommon coal and the other is uncommon tungsten ores. It gets directly inserted into the carbon and carbide assemblers, and they all go into science and then straight into the silos. There's no chest buffering between them, and they're enough to keep up when they start lunch in this kind of alternating pattern, so that there's not really any downtime. This entire block is enough to make 30,000 per minute. Wow. And yeah, as for the coal, it's pretty much the same design on the LDS shuffling part, but we are not really needing all the higher quality ones. We only need uncommon coal that are belted out, and same as the fluid voiding, but we do need a little bit oil for the rocket fuel production here, and petroleum for plastic for the rocket parts. Other than that, this is all you need, and even all the rocket parts are belted in. And yeah, this is definitely the smallest even quality planetary size setup we've made. I think it's probably even smaller than a common size setup, and this entire part only used like 250 megawatts thanks to these efficiency modules. But yeah, that's really about it. It's very easy and chill factory. Now let's take a look at our Gleba base, where quality is pretty hard to get because we can't just toss all the fruits into recyclers like ores, because we need to have enough seeds to plant them back. That's why we have kind of two sections here. One of them feed into this part where we're doing capture bot upcycling and processing all the fruits with productivity modules, and the other parts will get enough seeds to just go into recyclers. Then we can start processing fruits at uncommon tier, and with both uncommon bioflux combined from two parts of the factory, we make science. And even though it is a lot of science made, but the amount of fruits required is kind of ridiculous compared to normal. We're actually eating at about 93,000 Yamakos per minute and 42,000 Gelinut per minute. And compared to a normal science setup of the equivalent amount of science, it's about like 7 times more fruits. And we had to clear out a very large space for our spore cloud to expand, and we did use artillery to clear out all the nests in existence. So we're not concerned about any attacks anymore, and there's no defense left on Gleba. And this spore cloud is pretty much at equilibrium, even though it was a lot smaller before 2.0.43 patch. Developers just removed some of the damaged tree mechanism, which was unintended to absorb pollutions. That's why the spore cloud can spread so much bigger. But yeah, we'll go into each individual part of the factories and take a closer look. Now this is a closer look on the farms. You might notice the plant towers are very close to each other, and this is intended for the overlapping layout. which does increase the overall fruit tree density by around 10 to 20%, so that we can get more fruits out of the same area of farms. But it did turn out to be kind of inefficient as term of the frame time used by the plant towers. There are way too many plant towers. Often are tracking the trees overlapped. That's why we kind of wired up all the towers and have them disabled and enabled in like a checkboard pattern, so that every 3 out of 4 towers are disabled all the time to save up on that calculations. But either way, we're producing a lot of fruits. Those are for the capture bot cycling, so they're not recycled. But here, as soon as the fruit come out of here, they go into the recycle blocks with some sort of control, so that they're plugged into these upcyclers and put into the chest and only extracted when they hit like a maybe full stack. Yeah, I think that's to be belted to the actual factory. Now let's take a look at our capture bot build. It is a very long direct insertion chain build that's kind of also tellable, and it consumes many belts of fruit into bioflux into capture bot. And you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of extra ingredients, but in fact the bioflux consumed for the other ingredients only make up about 1 or 2% of the total bioflux consumed for capture bot rockets. And we have 3 whole rows of these consuming all those fruit. And yeah, there are some other production blocks like batteries and steel and engine units, a lot of blue chips, plastic here, sulfuric acid, everything kind of produced locally, and lube for electric engines. And here's the molten block with these mini bacteria breeding loop. Since the base is constantly running, we don't really need the Kickstarter here, unless something goes terribly wrong. And railgun ammo and some Prot 3 import with explosives, so you know what is going on here with the capture bot upcycling with some railguns to clear out these useless chests full of garbage, as I call them, okay, because we only need the uncommon bioflux out of this block, and everything else are pretty much useless to us. Even the higher quality capture bots, I kind of stock up a little bit, but they're filled up now and everything goes to waste. But again, all these make about 10,000 uncommon bioflux per minute out of the 24,000 per minute needed for science. And here's a tiny bit of normal bioflux export for Nauvis. We have a lot of nest to be fed. And yeah, here's some carbon fiber export from just a single carbon fiber bio chamber with imported carbon, because I just think carbon burning recipe is very slow and it's a lot easier to just make in space. And again, we have a 1 gigawatt fusion reactor to power this space. It's just enough, I think, even though we are burning a little bit of the extra stuff, but not much to power the entire base. Now let's take a look at our science production here in the blocks, and briefly take a look at our uncommon fruit processing. And this is all the bioflux chambers needed for the extra flux requirement for science. As for our science block, is actually very simple. We have the mini loop of egg breeding again, feed into a single science chamber. The ratios are just right that the eggs can be always alive without needing external import or whatever. And the science can be alternated between two silos, so the production can never stop either. And the bioflux feed into the nutrient chamber to feed egg breeding. So the other belt of bioflux feed into science chamber. And you might be thinking, why do we have two bioflux belts? It's because the bioflux that come from capture bot upcycling are 100% fresh when they come out of the recyclers. So we prioritize them into the science chamber because that's where the freshness of the bioflux really matters. Well, the nutrient one doesn't really matter because the nutrients for egg breeding will always come out at 100% fresh eggs. But yeah, we have really fresh Gleba signs with this setup due to how the upcycling work. You can see all of these are at 97 to 99% freshness. And yeah, so that's why we only need to produce slightly over 30,000 per minute, like probably 34,000 is enough. So that this block used to make 33,000 per minute, and it was just not enough by like tiny bit, like 1 or 2%. So I had to add this extra block. It's a little bit ugly, but that pushed us over the amount of Gleba science needed for our total consumption. Another thing worth mentioning is how we are dealing with Gleba science on Nauvis, since we don't really want them to build up and spoil in hub or whatever, that we are just taking them out, putting on belts and throwing into the labs and trying to keep them at maximum freshness all the time. If we're not consuming them, we enable this belt piece and then recycle them at some kind of clocked rates to match exactly how much they're being produced or transferred. Oh, like right now, we're indeed overproducing a little bit since our hub is just grabbing whatever the ship is transporting. But yeah, a big factor in Gleba science freshness is how much buffer there is in existence, mostly from the science setups, silos, and transport ships, and all these belts. Actually, a lot of them come from the belts. That's why we have this setup here to use a bulk insert to unstack from the belt buffers into each lab rows, and somehow this decreased the amount of total buffers there is in existence and making it a lot fresher overall for all the labs to be able to consume Gleba science. Let's move on to our Fulgora base, where there are a lot of starter bases you can see, but they're no longer functioning because our final design from here is enough to make 30,000 non-common per minute without any trains or really long belts. It's really another compact build from just a single scrap mine. Well, I did experiment with other designs here and even launching scraps into space to process here, and they are all proven to be pretty inefficient or throughput limited in a lot of places to scale up to big numbers. Now we can start looking at this space and break it down into 4 parts, where we are doing quality mining in the center and a lot of scrap processing block, but you can already see there's some bots flying and you know what is there. It's the railgun fighter setup again, and then there's also the EMP upcycling part, where we're producing uncommon Homium plates for the science, since quality mining into quality Homium ores does not become quality Homium plates because it become liquids where the quality is lost. And the science block here, where it's finally combining all the materials from the other places into science, and a little bit of extra stuff in the end I'll explain later. But this thing actually use less scraps to be recycled than a normal science setup, thanks to the science needing most of the Homium throughput as the form of liquids instead of Homium plates, so that when we go from normal to uncommon, our liquids requirement that go into the science is literally cut down by half, while the Homium plates requirement does increase because it's upcycling and you kind of lose a lot of throughput. But overall, since the science cut down fluids by so much more, this entire build only used about 80% Homium ores as a normal size setup would. So this is one of the very rare cases where quality science might be better than normal. Now let's take a look at the mining block. Again, with the silo chest and quality drill direct inserted in here. But the difference between this and our Vulcanus setup is that we are deleting common scraps with fighter railguns, because we can't really using casing recyclers to delete them, because they become a billion random items and it would definitely clog up. But yeah, if you're wondering why we're deleting normal scraps, is because you want as much uncommon scraps output as possible, so we get a lot more uncommon batteries and other things for the science ingredients, so we don't need to actually upcycle stuff for normal. And the Homium ore quality doesn't really matter here, so as long as we have enough scrap throughput, Homium is going to be fine. And yeah, we're even scrapping, recycling some rare scraps here to make up use all the Homium ores as possible, while also providing rare steel for the chest that are to be destroyed here. And these quality chests make it that we don't need to shoot as often as if those are just normal chests, a little bit more buffering, but it still require a lot of fighter eggs and productivity 3 imports. Well, it might look like a lot, but it's actually not much, as I will show later. And yeah. Now for scrap recycling, we actually have 4 lines of fighter railguns, and 2 of them are for uncommon and the other 2 are for normal quality. As we can see here, they pretty much share the same design, but we take kind of different things out for different purposes. With this setup, a lot of circuits. But the main idea is we only take what we need from these recycled chests into the wagons on the belts and to where they're consumed and if they ever back up, the circuits will just tell the inserters to not take out the item from the chest into the wagons. And another big thing is the filters inside these wagons are made sure that the amount of items are multiple of 16, so that these stack inserters will not try to put more than the multiples of 16 into these wagons, otherwise they might be stuck in a partially depositing state and thus killing the throughput, or just having the entire box of actually useful material getting shot. So yeah, this thing took a lot of time to design and experiment. We're basically getting all the homing ores out we need, all the wood chips needed. They're actually kind of short for EMP upcycling. That's why we're not destroying all the common scraps, because we still need the normal blue chips for either rocket parts or EMP upcycling mostly. And we're even taking out some concrete and steel. Again, steel for EMP and steel plus concrete with a little bit of imported iron calcite for molten iron into refined concrete, again for EMP upcycling. And yeah, here's the familiar setup to recycle prot 3 on the timer here into these egg requester chests to clock the railgun shot. And all the chests here are just uncommon tier. For that, we can't really afford to shoot all the rear chests everywhere, and they come from the uncommon scrap recycling, which share the same idea, but we need a lot less material, or kind of different materials. Still need the blue chips for the green chips, and homemade ores, of course, LDS for the copper, and now we're actually needing the batteries for accumulators, while also taking some ice out for water, of course, needed everywhere. Also a lot of chests for the other block to replace their chest with. But here the chests we need are all just I don't know what this one is for, but for these chests there are rare chests, so we can buffer more. But yeah, we're not taking out most of the gears. All the gears are destroyed, and concrete, solid fuel, all these garbage are just deleted by the railgun, and it's very efficient at doing so. In fact, this factory does not have many recyclers at all compared to a actual Fulgora base that's even with like those expensive recipe crafting, like hazard concrete, steel chests, or even other random things like rubber boards to avoid items. They're all not as good as this, in my opinion. You just straight up delete the chest with all the items in them. Now let's take a look at our EMP upcycling malls or blocks. You see I'm using some bots, unfortunately, and every one of them is in their own network, separated by like one tile, so the bots don't fly around a lot. But yeah, they are very compact. I'm using quality homing casting. This is actually a way to make more uncommon plates on the same amount of fluid instead of doing full productivity. And we're using the common outputs. Oh, it's auto saving. Yeah, we're using the common homemade plates for upcycling EMPs here, and all the ingredients belted from the recycle block in here. And yeah, all these combined makes enough uncommon homemade plates for our science setup, which we'll cover later. But let's go to this part where we actually do use all the even higher quality outputs like rare and epic and legendary into this tiny upcycle block with some kind of upcycling to correct the ratio, since we're consuming uncommon homing plates other places. So here we are upcycling all the way to legendary EMPs for the legendary homing plates export for Aquilo, and a little bit of normal homing plate for Aquilo again. Fusion cells, these very low quantity, so like one silo of each is enough. And this block also makes sure that if we have too much of the garbage output, even though they're legendary, we toss them onto this trash belt, which will go back to our center mining block, put in these chests, and destroyed by the railgun. Let's finally take a look at the science blocks. All the fluids come from outside, from these scrap blocks where we produce the homing solutions and electrolyte. But everything else is mostly directly inserted, with the exception of some superconductors where the throughput is very low. Yeah, we just kind of belt things around. Everything else we're doing machine to machine, but also using some uncommon iron ores for iron smelting for accumulators and the extra batteries needed. You might wonder why we're not using gear recycling, because I personally find it very inefficient than just building iron ores imported. But if you really want to produce everything locally, our gears might be okay to take it out from the recycling blocks. I just find it a lot extra recyclers needed that might not be as efficient as just importing uncommon iron ores. Anyways, here's also the wood chip recycling to direct insert green circuits into supercapacitors, and we're taking out some extra copper and plastic from LDS recycling or superconductors. And the way we balance between how much battery is taken from the belt versus produced locally is actually based on if we have enough plastic on here as a balancing condition, which is kind of controlled by the circuits here to destroy plastic based on an interval, so that we are perfectly consuming the batteries per block from belts versus the cryo plant production. As you can see, they're toggling between so that they're consumed with the correct ratio, so that nothing is clogged up. Yeah, all these blocks combined make 30,000 per minute again. They're very efficient. Well, we just use the rocky parts mostly for scrap recycling again. Also rocky fuel. One assembler is enough to, for the entire base. The last part to take a look at is the hub integration in this build. We're importing element batteries again for the biter eggs, explosives for railgun ammo since we can't make coal here, so no explosives on Fulgora, and the uncommon ores for iron, and some simple sulfuric acid build for batteries, and is a single pump for heavy oil for the entire Fulgora build. Before we look at Aquilo, let's take a look at our transport ships. And this is our mini brick setup, as they call it, that transport all our inner planet sciences around. Like this one is flying between Vulcanus and Nauvis, transporting equivalent of 3 minute worth of production of purple, yellow legendary sizes, and uncommon Vulcanus signs, and some other things for like legendary productivity modules and some spare collectors we will need later, tungsten for artillery, and calcite. And we take a little bit prod series from Nauvis because we need those for the LDS shuffling with railgun biter, and as it is very loud when they're dumping the pods for some reason. But yeah, we have 2 of these ships for most inner planet, like Vulcanus and Fulgora, so that they can keep a constant production with this alternating silo setup. There will always be a ship over the planet, like here. And Fulgora 1 transport a lot more because there's no legendary signs there. But yeah, these ships are pretty compact. I'm not gonna claim they're the most optimal whatsoever, but they just kind of work. I didn't bother to do the diagonal layout to save 1 extra tile because I don't really think it matters for a ship to fly every like few minutes and have just 4 gun turrets. Anyways, all of these are pretty standard, just direct insertion stuff. We do use circuits to limit what asteroids we're short on. And well, I guess the only special part is this single foundry that run on a latch to cast metal when we have enough molten, and make moltens when we don't have enough, so that it just switch between 2 recipe and take less space, I guess. And it's completely powered by solar. Yeah. And as for Gleba, we have 4 of these ships, because we transport very few Gleba signs. As I said, we need less buffer for more freshness. So this how we do it. We make 4 of these small bricks, and they constantly run between Nauvis and Gleba. Now for the Aquilo ships, we have 2, and let's take a look at this one first. It's a simpler one. It just go between Vulcanus, Gleba, and Aquilo to pick up mostly the quantum chip ingredients, as I showed earlier, the processing unit and LES from Vulcanus, as well as tungsten carbide and carbon fiber from Gleba, and we also import some calcite from Vulcanus for Gleba, fusion cells for Gleba as well, and we drop explosives and carbon for Gleba again for the imports needed there. And the other Aquilo ship is a little bit different. Even so the front design is mostly the same, but we have a tiny casino here to upcycle asteroids. because if you remember, we are importing a lot of uncommon iron ores from here. In fact, it's not a lot, that's why this is enough. There's just a few crushers needed for an overall of 14,000 uncommon iron ores per minute from this. Well, this ship also carries legendary Homian plates from Fulgora to Aquilo, and also normal quality for fusion cells again. Also carries 96,000 legendary cryoscience back from Aquilo to Nauvis. So this ship does many things, and it's pretty good in my opinion. It does all the jobs and never fails on this schedule. Also complete running on solar as well. As you can see, we don't need fusion. Now let's take a look at our Aquilo base. Even though it's pretty simple, ignoring this huge silo matrix, but we're just importing most of the stuff here as it should be, and we have a lot of cargo base here to import the legendary eyes from Space Casino at once, and combined with legendary Homian, we just get legendary signs already, since all the fluids don't have quality, so we need them in a very low quantity. 2 cooling plant is enough, and a single hot fluoroketone production is also enough for our science setup. And here are the silos. Didn't really bother to do the science assembler to silo setup, since I don't think this much belt throughput matters. But yeah, and here are all the quantum chip production. All these are enough for 60,000 per minute Promethium signs. Then we also have a lot of fusion cell exports for Space Casino trips and some other planets. As for all these accumulators, again, they're for that silo array to kind of work for a little bit. And this fusion setup, that's definitely not the correct ratio. Pretty much starter base still here, and that didn't bother to tear it down. I'm just afraid that it's producing the heat. Some part of the base might freeze if I delete it. Yeah, this thing pretty much says all about it. Before going into Promethium, there's one last science we need to cover as military science that ended up making on Nauvis. And in case you're wondering why I didn't make this one legendary compared to all the Nauvis signs as legendary, is because how hard it is to get otherwise. 25,000 legendary code per minute, which is almost impossible to do. Even with something like Space Casino or other cursed routes like Gleba, quality Gleba code, both of them are just extremely taxing on the processing power that we just cannot afford to make legendary military. So much machines and or asteroids, etc. Now that we're just doing the good old quality mining, the same fighter railgun setup to avoid common ores. Now that we're doing this landfill to compress stone even more, so we don't really need to shoot this often. But yeah, we're taking only uncommon ores out. Same concept as Vulcanus, taking the walls out and building it all the way to size. And we're doing the same thing as coal and building the uncommon coal here. Same thing as uncommon iron ores. Build it all the way here for grenades and yellow ammo. Well, when we make them into red ammo, we're not using ores but some LDS shuffling. Again, it's very convenient here because LDS just make extra copper and steel when it's recycled, which is perfect for red ammo, even though it does make a little bit extra copper. I'm just voiding those this way. It's not a lot of items throughput, so I don't really care to use railgun voiding. And here is the tiny block to make the LDS, and the loop to kind of balance the plastic if there's too much, or make some extra plastic in the loop. But yeah, all the modems needed on Nauvis are basically for this setup. Now we have all the ingredients and we just put them together and we get military. This is very easy somehow compared to the other options. And I did make some other designs that have more quality modules in the machine, so we make uncommon, military, and upwards. But it is very hard to deal with in the lab, so I didn't end up making it, and it was like a train base as well. And trains, they're pretty bad in Space Age, unfortunately. It takes way too much update time for very low throughput. At least for items. For fluids, they're at least better. But yeah, the only trains I have in the entire game are here just to supply the railgun biter blocks with ammo, chest, and some bells. I was originally recycling processes here as well, but then I realized this is Nauvis, I don't really need it. I can just put out a nest and grab the egg when there's a request coming in and feed it with a little bit of bioflux, and that's all I need. So yeah, let's also just cover the rest of Nauvis. There's a very small uranium ore recycling block that is currently just idle because we have enough legendary uranium ores for U235, doing some legendary coveracts here. But yeah, these are pretty important if we want to make a lot of nests in labs, which I've done like ages ago. They have been just like piling up unless I stop them. Like the labs, I still have like a few hundred extras after building this 1000 lab array. And about the biter eggs, I do have this tiny setup to produce maybe like 2 legendary per minute. Not the best thing, I just kind of kept it, even though I don't really even need legendary eggs anymore. I am still stocking up these here. They're like at least 200,000 legendary processes I've stocked up, so I don't know what I'm gonna use them for. Yeah, what else? There's just some very old train leftovers I didn't bother to tear down because it looked kind of cursed. Some overlapping stations. And there's also the legendary biter nest I put out and let them go rogue, and they did expand into legendary warrens and stuff, and these things are kind of crazy. The range are bigger than a legendary railgun. But anyways, I am controlling them on this peninsula. They're not going anywhere. Last science to be covered is Promethium science, even though we're making it at normal quality, because how hard or just how inefficient it would be if we're trying to even make it at uncommon. But yeah, a lot of effort went into the designing of this absolute brick of 300,000 tons and flying like almost 8 hours shift into Shattered Planet and back. And yeah, let's put it into perspective. It's gonna lag the game a lot, but if we compare the size of this brick to our Nauvis base, it looks absolutely hilarious. But yeah, if we try to compare this ship to our Vulcanus base, you can see the true scale of it. Alright, let's cancel the blueprint, otherwise my UPS is actually at 1. But yeah, the original idea was to optimize this for UPS again, because I believe the chunk haulers are better, have less calculations. We just fly slow and collect things with lower quality collectors and lower quality turrets, or again less calculations around things. But I've seen some pretty decent, probably more efficient fast ships. But back when I was designing this, I went with the absolute massive chunk hauler, and it is like 2,000 tiles wide and takes 1.5 million space platforms. That's what the this factory was for on Vulcanus, because we had to build it, and it takes like a day to send up all the materials and build the platforms, while having a lot of issues because of the building algorithm, leaving a lot of lines and slow down over time. Such I didn't enjoy building it because I had to AFK a lot while deconstructing and reprinting it. But yeah, all these are underground belts, and it carries. This one should be full now. Yup, it's returning to Aquilo. And we can see on this circuit is connected to all the bells and radars to read all the storage of every section combined. We have 39.76 million chunks on board, and we're going to Aquilo to pick up 1.6 million quantum processor. That's what the this 1000 silo matrix was for. But yeah, we can wait a little bit when they get to Aquilo and see the launches. And here we are at Aquilo. Take a look. All 1000 rocket launching at once. And I can't even zoom out far enough for this by the GUI. Oh no. But yeah, it actually takes 8 launches to send up 1.6 million quantum chips that's being requested on the brick. And our power grid is basically dying at the moment. That's what the accumulators are for. But yeah, it does go down a little bit by a little bit. And so we do have all the silos legendary with minimum energy consumption, with the speed and efficiency modules. But yeah, it takes many launches, and this is definitely my favorite part of my entire Aquilo build. Even so, it's kind of completely unnecessary if we just transport the quantum chip back to Nauvis with some other haulers and send up to the Promethium ship when it's crafting the science along with the biter eggs. Then we don't need literally as much silos as this, but the idea was utterly amazing to me, so I had to build this. And it barely heats up itself, where all these heat towers on the edges are burning the rocket fuel shared from the silo ingredient belt. I think it will be finishing up soon. Okay, never mind. Make the 6th batch. And we're probably gonna be out of power soon. Yeah, we're a little bit brown out, but it's mostly fine. The base is still functional. It's also interesting that the sound effect of the rocket blasting off is not properly played. Like the quality, I mean the volume is kind of off. You can barely hear it, probably not even a little bit. But yeah, here is just the last batch being launched. The pattern it makes is kind of interesting here. It's probably how the silos were placed. But yeah, now that it finished all the launches, it's just restocking on the flow chips, LTS, and quantum chips over the next 10 hours or so. Let's check. Yeah, 12 hours. Yeah. Now back to our ship, we have collected enough quantum chips, and it will be flying back to Nauvis. Another thing about this ship is that all the front collectors are set to filter with Promethium once inside Shattered Planet, and there are only very few collectors collecting normal asteroids for ammo production and fuel, that I have to buffer a lot of them on the sides for fuel mostly, because of how much fuel it takes to move this. And it took a very long time, or even some temporary setups to kickstart this ship. Otherwise, if you try to fly this outside Shattered Planet, it will be in a asteroid deficit by a lot over time, but this buffer will cover it once it goes back to Shattered Planet again. So yeah, about the SPM of this ship is actually not very high because of how slow it is at flying. It's at exactly 30,000 per minute, and for 60,000 per minute is why we need another one. We have 2 bricks, and this one is currently making signs. And the thing about them is that I don't have them fully automated still. To this day, I have to toggle this button every time a ship leaves, and when they arrive, that I have to turn it on once the other ship is leaving or about to leave, when it's out of chunks. But yeah, if you have any ideas on how to do this, please comment below. It is pretty annoying to design around this problem, and not even a token system might help. I mean, I'm already kind of doing this, but that is for launching the eggs, so that these facilities are on when their egg request in the orbit. And if we detect 2 ships are parking at the same time, this one will be also turned on to just insert eggs in here. And once one of the ship leaves, it is disabled again. All the eggs still in the silos are pulled out into this disposal square that you can imagine what happens here. Yeah, that is pretty much the Promethium ship. I don't need to go over all the ammo production on board because, like I said, there are Lego pieces from the other ships. They're very identical. Well, maybe this is just half of the railgun. But yeah, this is all the same as the other ship. And for fuel production, we are again belting all the ingredients here into the fuel plants. And for this extra stack, it's just there so that we keep a constant speed on the way into Shatter, and on the way back we turn it off so we have the exact same speed. That it is like symmetric, I guess. But again, this ship was designed to fly at 100 speed, but somehow we're missing some stressors that I kind of forgot that it's only flying at 80 inside Shattered, and it is actually not very nice for UPS, sadly, but I'm too lazy to fix it. If anybody want to try and optimize this ship, feel free, but it was such a drag to test this and try to optimize it for anything that I just wanted to build it and be done with it. It is pretty surprising to see it even work, honestly, because how long it takes for one cycle to complete. But yeah, it's pretty much about all the sciences. I think there's a few ships I forgot to cover, like this one, also related to eggs. This one fly between Nauvis and Fulgora and picks up some biter eggs for Prot 3s since we need a lot of Prot 3s on Fulgora. Now I could have just made this on ground, but this ship is definitely more interesting. Of chips production and eggs, and we just called it Amazon Fresh. Yeah, and there's also a just a small ship, I guess, and personal transport back in the days. I had a few other ships that are already deleted because they were like pretty bad on UPS. But yeah, they're still blueprinted, like this one from my earliest Factorio stream. Some other like casino designs, a ship that take the scraps from Fulgora and do recycle in space and toss all the trash off board, and some very early AM ships and some of my friends blueprint. Another Promethium ship attempt, but yeah, all of them are gone now in the name of UPS, which is very sad. But yeah, if I put it into perspective, our starter ships are so small compared to this. Like, it is a grain of sand on this brick. Now that we covered all the science production, this video is coming to an end. Overall, I really enjoyed designing all these quality science factories. Some might say I have a crippling gamble addiction, like this egg casino in the background. But there's also some disappointing news I want to share, like the devs on Discord said they're considered killing Space Casino or LDS shuffling, and even quality calcite to stone in 2.1 for some reason, so that half of this base wouldn't be functional in 2.1. But again, it's probably still in very early development stage and not coming out in a year, so take all these with a grain of salt. We'll see what they change in the future. And I have to apologize for this tour for being way too long. Most of the sections are unscripted, so I just kind of talk about whatever I want to cover. But if you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed this tour, and let me know in the comments your favorite design from the base or opinions on 2.1 quality changes, or what do you like to see on this channel in the future, or anything in general. And yeah, that's it. See you on next video or stream when I play with even more quality recipes.